Yo, what is up, you guys? So today I'm gonna kind of show you guys kind of my process to making these kind of very dub heavy things. I used to make a lot of dubstep in those kind of genres around 2010 to 11 to, well, maybe not 2010, that might have been too early for it. Maybe, for sure, definitely 2011, so it's been a while since I made those, but I still apply the same kind of reverse engineering to everything I do now. So I really recommend getting into those kind of genres because it's really fun making those kind of bass heavy things. And I think it translates well into developing a sound design skill, if you will. So first off, everything you hear mostly is just stuff from the Growls Rack Pack. So like 90% of this, of what you're hearing, is something I've already released to you guys on my website. But I'm going to show you guys kind of my way that my process of making a new patch in Massive, for example. So you can apply this to any synth, again, or any DAW. So what I like to do is, after I make something cool, like something like this, or let's go to this part actually. So once I make stuff like that or like this, what I like to do to kind of make other layers and to start making new patches and come up with new ideas so that I'm never using the same sound over and over, is I like to save the racks. So obviously you guys know about the racks packs that I do and stuff like that. So, you know, for dubstep kind of stuff, there has to be a lot of compression, there has to be a lot of crushing. That's kind of a part of what it sounds like. So I like to throw on the OTT multiband setting from Ableton, so you can take a quick peek at this, but it's just the OTT setting. Then I follow with a limiter just to throw it way up and just do crazy stupid dynamic destroying. Again, because that's, you know, kind of with dubstep, you know, that's kind of the style of it. It's kind of meant to be super loud and super, like, just nuts. And because of the way that the percussion is, it kind of allows us to kind of get really crazy with this stuff. If this is at 128, you would have to take a completely different approach to, you know, the production side of it. And then obviously, you know, a little bit of Camel Crush, a good free plugin for distortion. So I think these are my settings right here, so you can pause real quick if you want. But basically, it's just a little bit of distortion. Mainly the compressor setting on the fat mode is mainly what I'm using out of this. And I tuck down the mix a bit and pull the volume down so it's not like too hot. And then a little bit of reverb, shockingly, I know. Usually most people like to use time bass effects on sends and through sends or buses, which is the proper way to do it, but sometimes just because it's sound designing and kind of just messing around, you can kind of, if you just mix it really low, you can kind of forgive it a little bit. So, you know, I don't have too much dry wet. The decay time is kind of long and the size is way up. You can see the low cut and the high cuts here. A little bit pre-delay, and that's basically it. And then I just have a little EQ, and sometimes what I like to do on other racks like this is I'll like to have a knob on the EQ so that I can map it out and then automate it. So for example, like right here. So again, most of these are from a pack I already did. So I'll leave a link down below if you guys are interested in that. So let's just make something new. So reverse engineering something just means that I take this kind of stuff and the stuff that kind of works for me. So I showed you this is basically one rack I've made before. And what I like to do now is just change out the patch. So whatever was in this rack before, I'm just going to now go to File, New Sound. And now I'm going to work into the processing that I have after Massive. So it's kind of like I already have distortion, like heavy compression following it. So it kind of allows me to work backwards. And I think that's a cool thing to do. I think it kind of helps people get more into sound designing, because sometimes people get frustrated just starting with the synth and not being able to make anything cool enough like that. But if you already have a chain that works for you, and you just make a new preset inside that chain, you're allowing yourself to kind of come up with things you didn't think you could do. So again, File, New Sound. And typically with, I don't know what I'm going to make, so we're just going to see what happens. But typically where I like to start with this kind of like dubstep-y type stuff is in the digital hybrid stuff. So I'm almost pretty sure I'm going to go with a gentle speech. Let's solo this and play it. So we're just going to have this little loop going. And it's really important to notice what note we're at so that I don't bring the octaves down if it's like a really low note. So this is like an E0, so maybe we'll bring it up to E1. Actually, let's just do this. That's gonna sound annoying, but it's okay. So let's play around with the wavetable position. It's the first thing I do. And then after I find that, I'll consider some LFOs or envelopes to go on it, and then I'll see if I want to add it to a bend plus or something like that, so we'll see. So I know from Massive, just playing around with it a lot, that using something like any of these waves and then throwing an LFO on it is a for sure easy way to get something kind of really awesome in this genre. So maybe let's go the other way with it, actually. So, and we could throw an envelope on this as well. So I'm already thinking how I can make this cooler. So let's grab this envelope and let's drag the attack. Alright, let's now go to the LFO. Let's set this to sync. Let's set it to a really slow rate to start with. And let's just stick with a kind of saw shape. And a really fun thing to do is also find kind of certain things that you want to start, mapping, or things to add to macro controls, or things that you might want to add to a little macro map. So inside of Massive, I can't really map this to a macro in here. So what I could do as an alternative is just open this up, this little arrow, configure, click on the ratio right here. And now I have it here, and now I can open up some macros here, and then now I can map this to a knob. So let's just grab it there, and let's have Massive open for this. So we're gonna set the ratios. So the lowest point is okay at 1, or actually let's set it to 2. So let's bring it up to 2. All right, and now let's pull the knob all the way to the other side, and let's put it to around 12, 1/12. So now, no matter how far I pull this knob all the way to the right, it's always going to end there. And if I pull it all the way over here, it's going to end it there because I set it there in the range. So let's take that off. And now I can kind of modulate this. So we're going to leave it there for now. So already I'm thinking ahead of like how I want to automate this and things like that. And the next thing I would probably do is try to keep it really simple with just one oscillator and add in the other ones later. But I try to get the main grit and chunkiness out of the first oscillator. So I might want to consider some pitch stuff. So if you hold down Option or Alt if you're on PC, while in these pitch boxes, you can bring it up and down octaves like this. So another fun thing we could do is just throw on a little envelope one again. Let's add actually another one. So let's shape this envelope. Let's not make it so long, so let's make it a really short one. And we don't need to go, well, we'll leave the level there. It's kind of just, let's see, I want to fool around with this, so. One thing I really wish Massive had was if you could copy oscillators. So if I could just copy all the settings here down to another oscillator, that'd be great, because then I would just leave this one a little different from that one. So now what I'm just going to do is just add in another oscillator set. So let's copy our settings kinda, so let's kind of get something similar to what we have there. It can be a little simpler, that might be fine. Let's do a bend minus. Alright, and one thing I always kind of, a rule of thumb, it's not really a real rule of thumb, but for me it is, if I'm going to do kind of like pitch envelopes and modulation to one oscillator, I'm going to apply kind of the similar thing to all the oscillators, so that way they all pitch bend or pitch modulate the same way, so that it doesn't sound really funky or like out of tune. It's one thing to detune something, but when something sounds like too detuned and it's like already sounding out of tune, then yeah, we don't want that. So let's bring this one down as well. So it sounds like a fart, so let's not make it sound like a fart. Okay, so I think we're finding something cool here. So it's really easy, like, again, everything is sounding really cool, and I'm just doing it randomly, and it's, again, just because of the processing that I've already established before. So, you know, just one day make a cool patch, save your rack and your processing, and then another day come back and just undo it, and just undo the patch and work into the processing. I swear, it's really easy. So one thing we can do now is start thinking about filtering. So I kind of like the idea of maybe this envelope going down slowly, or this amp, I mean, with this envelope. And maybe let's fool around with this one a bit more. Let's really get weird with it. Let's see, let's actually hold down the note. Let's say I'm in C1. Now let's play around with this, see how it sounds. So I gave that a try, but I think I'll just take it off. And let's go back to this. Let's take this off then and set it back to spectrum. And I'm just gonna listen to that one. Let's try something a little faster for this one. So let's just set it all the way up. We'll do a custom rate. Alright, let's go back to the custom rate. I also like performers, but I feel like just because it takes a little longer to fiddle with them to get exactly what you want out of it, I always go to LFOs and envelopes first, so let's just leave it at that. I kind of think it sounds funny. Alright, let's bring this maybe up or down an octave. Alright, so we're going to leave it very simple there. Let's just throw in another a wave here, and let's go for a sine square. And let's just set it to the sine wave. So very simple like that. And now, let's go to the modulation oscillator. So kind of just fooling around there. I didn't even get to really play around with different waves. So sometimes what I'll do, like I said, sometimes I'll kind of copy the first oscillator a little bit, and then, you know, just scroll through it and listen. So I might just like use this little arrows to go through the different other wave tables. So let's just do that. I think I have a cool idea for this. Again, I'm just fooling around, you know, not really thinking like in a really sound design synthesis way. I'm not really trying to specifically do something that I can imagine synthesizing in my head, like, you know, pull this oscillator, set it to this kind of square wave, combine it with this other kind of wave. I'm not thinking like that. I'm just pulling knobs. So this is basically something that anyone could do. So let's now go down back to here. So let's set this to maybe, we'll play around with the pitch of this in a bit, but let's, the first thing I like to fool around is phase. And again, actually let's go for the envelope one. I think that might be the most interesting here. I kind of want to make this longer. Maybe let's take this off. And let's add the envelope 2 actually in there. And let's turn it on. Actually, I want to see, I know I already mapped it out, that LFO, whatever, but I kind of want to just try these envelopes. Alright, so again, I'm just really messing around. So one other thing I would really like to do, probably it's a good idea to start off on voicing, but you know, it's not always the first thing I go to. But now I think we might want to set this to a monophone, maybe leave it on always. And I kind of always like to fool around with a little bit of the pitch and wavetable. So what I'd like to do is just, let's see, let's maybe play around with this. Let's pull this down to around really low, so just around there. So what I like to do, as opposed to going 1 through 100, I kind of just like to pull this all the way to the right and just set the number I want in here, so that way I'm not guessing the value. And let's see. That might also be fun to modulate this. And I also like to mess around with, obviously, the oscillator phases, so it's just going to phase these different oscillators. So it's really fun to use the restart via gate for that. So it's just kind of a nice way to find a sweet spot of, you know, the phasing. Alright, so now I'm going to close that down, play around with it a little bit, see how I like it. This is kind of a fast way to make cool stuff, but sometimes you just want to take your time and just kind of find something really unique, you know. So I don't really, so like this, I could still scrap this and I'd be okay with it. But it's doing this process over and over that you start to kind of find a nice little sweet spot of the things you like in the synth alone, as opposed to thinking about, you know, where to stop making the patch and then where to add the processing to kind of fill in the rest. I kind of like to, again, work into it. So let's maybe copy down some of this other MIDI from earlier. Let's just listen to it. So not as cool sounding as another one I made. So maybe we'll make this one higher, a little bit higher pitch. So let's go back into this and let's maybe throw up one of these oscillators. Alright, so now filtering time. So I like to do a low pass, and I like to maybe sometimes combine it with a comb, a scream, a daft, or a band reject. But you know, it's not always the same stuff. So let's just do these two for now. Let's turn off filter 2. I have a decision if I want to do this in parallel routing or serial. Serial just means it's going to do it in order of filter 1, then goes into filter 2, and whatever, you know, filter 2 settings are, it's mainly going to be what it mostly sounds like. Where if I have it on parallel, like where it is right now, it's going to go through both of them and kind of do a mix of it. So then I have this mix to control that. So let's put this in the middle and let's leave it on parallel. Actually, I want to have it on serial, so let's do it like that. And now I can't really tell you what's better for dubstep type stuff. I mean, you know, I noticed that most of the times I would be probably in parallel, but you know, it's not like a rule of thumb or anything like that. Alright, so I'm finally starting to get something that I feel like, ooh, that could be cool. That could be useful, you know? What octave is this? So this is like a C0. That's so low. But again, when I make patches that require a specific octave range, like something from C0 to C1, I usually will write that in the patch name. So if I was to name this, I would call it, you know, some stupid name and then put in like little quotations C0 through C1, and I'll know what that means. Like I do that all the time, so that's just kind of like, so that way when I click on this preset when I'm browsing through presets, and I go, wow, fuck, that one sounds like shit, and then I notice the C1 or C0 thing, and I'll be like, oh, well, I'm playing this too high or too low or whatever. So let's turn on filter 2. And now again, so now that's in serial, filter 1 is now going to go into filter 2, and now the final output of what it will sound like is mainly going to now depend on filter 2. Let's go to a band reject. Oh, I was like, why the hell do I not hear this? Boom, you gotta throw that volume up. Hold on, I'm curious. I guess it really doesn't matter, it's just gonna go through it anyway, so let's just set it to this. Alright, so something like that might be cool with an LFO this time. And now I remember that we can use that LFO from earlier, this little map. Cool, so that actually ended up being useful. I think we might want to do the same with the bandwidth, so just the tiniest amount of that. Alright, so now basically from here it's just effects. So what I like to do is just apply kind of the same stuff everyone does. A little bit of parabolic shaper, and maybe a little bit of some sort of drive or hard clipper. So we'll add a tube over here into FX1 in a bit. And sometimes it's kind of funny to say you can just throw the inserts in because there's already processing like distortion, things like that on this track. So these effects are these inserts are kind of like, I might not need them as much. So sometimes just leaving it like right down the middle, halfway to the drive is good enough. But again, modulating these and throwing LFOs onto these, you know, makes it a little bit more crazy and all that. But sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes it's too much. Let's try Bit Crusher. And that sounds way too weird. Phase shifter? Not a phase shifter. A frequency shifter is actually kind of cool sometimes too. Let's set it right down the middle and throw a envelope 1 on there to drag it all the way up. Okay, so maybe an envelope 2, or if not, we'll make a new one for this one. Let's play around with this, the rate of the LFO again. Sometimes throwing in a feedback can really change the whole thing and make it all awesome. So let's do that. And let's play around again with throwing a LFO on there. And for fun, I'll throw this rack onto my Facebook, so you guys can just go ahead and do that. Get it if you want. That sounds really awesome. I can imagine that being something that I would definitely automate and find a nice little spot for. So let's add a classic tube. Maybe let's try a Bronner. That's a little bit warmer. Let's try a little bit chorus, actually. That might be fun. Chorus is a really important thing to use sometimes in this kind of sound design, so let's pull this down a bit. I've just never really been a big fan of the chorus inside a Massive. I never really find it to be as good as a external plugin or like a stock chorus plugin. I feel like that is so much better, but I will try to make this one work if I can. Alright, so fuck that. Let's just go with the dimension expander, why not? So let's pull that size down, let's pull the dry wet up. So what this is doing is just delaying one side from the other, making it seem wider. That's all it is. So this is a little trick we could even do with a like a delay plugin by just, you know, setting the left side and the right side off by just a couple of milliseconds. So, and I don't need to add reverb or anything like that. So, you know, we're kind of done just there. Now you might think, well, that sounds really weird, but I'm imagining it in the context of like a really heavy kind of growly based drop or something like that, and then just having these weird like little high-pitched squeaks really kind of cuts through and makes something a little bit more funky or weird. So I go for that kind of stuff. So let's see what it sounds like in this. Or maybe over here. Oh, that would be cool right here at this part. If I could hear it, if it was a little louder, perhaps. Cool. It sounds kind of like a little piccolo Pete or something like that. That's an American firework if you guys aren't from the US. Around July 4th, we always have fireworks and things like that. So there's these little like high-pitched fireworks. So I don't think that's an international thing, but yeah, it sounds like a piccolo Pete. So anywho, I'll throw this on my Facebook for you guys to download if you want it. And thanks guys for watching. I know it's a long video, but again, I just kind of wanted to show you kind of me just mucking around. So thanks for watching, y'all, and let's